Hi guys. Alright, so I've been listening to rather a sermon by T.D. Jakes called The Blind Spot. He preached it on the 18th of August. You need to find it on YouTube. I've listened to it at least 4 times so far. Listened to it again this morning. And while I was listening to it, I was reminded of a story. Of course, it's a personal story, duh. But I was reminded of something because he was talking about blind spots, and he's talking about some of the times that we can feel so we get to this place where we can't see ourselves. And so he gave the example of him being on the highway and trying to switch lanes, and he said he had checked his rear view mirrors, everything, made sure everything was fine, and then he was switching lanes, and then he heard a car honking at him. And of course, the man was cursing expletives at him, etc., because he nearly wrote him off the road. And he said he didn't see him. This car was so close to him that the car was in his blind spot. And so I'm not going to repreach his message. I'm encouraging you to go and find it on YouTube and listen to it. But when he was talking about that, because we all have blind spots, what came to me was self-righteousness. You know, we get to this place where we feel like we have no wrong, and how can other people sin in these ways and we would never do, you know. And I remember when I was a baby Christian, when I had just recently come into the kingdom, I remember that there was this lady who was in ministry. She was single. And so, you know, you come into the kingdom and you're doing everything by the letter of the book, you know, and so you're careful about your walk, and you're careful not to fall into sin, and how, you know, and you turn up your nose at people that walk, that have problems. You turn up your nose at people that fall into temptation and fall into sin. And so I remember this lady, she was in ministry and single, and she got pregnant. And I was like, I remember saying it, you know, I was like, how could she be in ministry and fall into this kind of sin? Why isn't she living holy? Why, you know? And just very self-righteous. And I believe that God, don't get me wrong, I don't believe that God puts us in particular situations, but I really do believe that God uses everything that we go through to teach us different things. So it wasn't long after that happened that I was in a relationship, and whole heap of feel up did I go on, you know. And I was in ministry, for lack of a better word, you know. I've always sang, you know, since I've been a Christian. I've always used my gift of singing, and so I was ministering to people's hearts, and feel up did I go on. And you know, this sin and self-righteousness is sin. It is wrong, you know. And so there's a saying, I never get it right. It goes something like therefore the grace of God, there go I, or something like that. I know I said it wrong, but if it weren't for grace, then is what it's saying, I would be in that situation too. If it weren't for grace, that would be my story too. And I believe God has used different situations in my own life to teach me to be humble, to teach me to say, Yori, don't put any confidence in your flesh, because your flesh will fail you. And so my encouragement this morning is to not put confidence in our flesh, to not be self-righteous. You know, stuff happens, and it's not like you intentionally set out to sin against the Lord sometimes. And this is not, and don't get me wrong again, this is not a justification for sin. We stand by it. Sin is wrong, and we must live upright, we must live holy before the Lord. But for us Christians who feel we get on our high horses and we feel like we can't sin, we feel like we're invincible to sin, and we feel like sin can't touch we, I want to encourage us to not put any confidence in our flesh. Yes, you can get to this place where certain things don't trouble you to a certain extent anymore. Yes, you can get to a place when you overcome, because I truly believe in victory in Christ, and so don't get me wrong. But the point the bigger picture I'm trying to paint, the point I'm trying to make is, don't put confidence in your flesh. You know, sometimes and don't put yourself in tempting situations as well, you know, because your flesh wants what your flesh wants, and your flesh will fail you, and your flesh will fail you every single time. So stop it. Sorry, But stop it. The self-righteousness, it's sin against law. It's sin against God. It is wrong. And none of us is better than the other. And any of us could fall into temptation. Any of us could slip up and make a mistake. And you know, this whole thing, oh, I would never do that. And how do you know you'd never do it? Faced with all of the things lined up correctly, it could very well be you. So stop that. It's not nice. Have a great day.